What was the Treaty of Westphalia? How did it change the way countries dealt with each other? And what's the principle of sovereignty? Then thank you for your attention to the question. Okay. So the Treaty of Westphalia, it was a treaty that was signed in the 1600s, 1647, 1648, around 1650. Okay. And this treaty marked the end of a significant period of warfare in Europe. The 30 years war in the Holy Roman Empire, the 80 years war between Spain and the Dutch, and that sort of thing. All kinds of warfare was going on forever in Europe. Europe is full of these tribalistic little kingdoms and all that. Some are big, some are small. If you look at Germany, the Germany of the time, my goodness, you will have a heart attack, or yeah, that sort of thing. So Europe was marred by tribal warfare. Yeah, these kings and principalities and empires. A little thing is called an empire if it's in Europe, that sort of thing. So you had the 30 years war, you had the war between Spain and the Dutch, which went on for 80 years and all that. And finally they said that, okay, let's agree to a set of principles, and we're going to call it the Treaty of Westphalia. So the Treaty of Westphalia was not a single treaty that you sit down and sign on one paper. It was a series of agreements or series of treaties that ended this entire period of decades of warfare. So you had political conflict, you had religious conflict, all kinds of conflicts layered together, woven together, which was just going on throughout Europe. So finally, this series of treaties was agreed upon, and it established a set of principles in Europe, which and these principles were then applied to the rest of the world, because European values are universal values, right? That sort of thing. So the first principle is that we'll talk about sovereignty. Yes, we will talk about sovereignty, but the first principle in Europe, which was established as per the Treaty of Westphalia, was that each state, each kingdom, so to say, or each state, let's say each political state, could independently determine its own official religion. Now, what are we talking about? Europe had only one religion, right? Christianity. No, but within Christianity, you had schisms, you had factions. You had the Protestants, you had the Calvinists, you had the Huguenots, you had the Lutherans, you had God knows what else, right? So each state could determine what will be its official religion within Christianity. You go beyond Christianity, we're going to kill you all. But if you, as long as you stay within Christianity, and what form of Christianity you want to adopt, all right, sir. So that is what they call religious tolerance. Okay, so we're going to treat Catholics and Protestants alike. You decide what your religion will be. I'll decide what my religion will be. You can be a Catholic guy. I'll be Protestant, or whatever, vice versa, whatever, and we will call this tolerance. We shall not tolerate anything except for Christianity, but we'll call this tolerance. Okay, so that's the first thing, that each state could determine its own official religion, and that's called religious tolerance. Second, importantly, each state is legally equal. So you may be 1,000 square kilometers, I may be 10,000 square kilometers, that guy may be 100 square kilometers, but as long as you are a state, we are all equal, legally equal. So it's like a nation with a population of 1 million having the same exact vote as a nation with a population of 100 million, that sort of thing, right? All states are equal. In India, all states are equal, whether it is a state with 3 million population or 300 million population. UP is equal to Manipur, right? In the parliament, that sort of thing, or in Indian federalism, you get the same amount of weight, legal weight, legal. So you have legal equality. So that sort of thing. That principle was it became a thing because of the Treaty of Westphalia, the legal equality of state. I don't care what your size is. I don't care what your power is. We're gonna be legally equal. And then there was the principle of non-interference in internal affairs. So you do what you want in your country. I'll look into it. I may look at it. I may see what's happening, but I will not interfere. And I'll do what I want in my country. You stay out of it. All right. Non-interference. It became a bench. I mean, it became a principle of international relations. And then they normalized diplomacy and treaties to resolve conflicts. That became more prominent. So that essentially laid the groundwork for the international system that we have today. So we don't go to war. We do diplomatic negotiations. We arm twist each other diplomatically. We see who has more leverage. We issue threats behind closed doors, but we don't actually go to war. We use economic means. We use other means. We don't go to war. So essentially, international organizations came out, emerged as a consequence of this, because if each state has equal legal weight, because there is legal equality, then coalitions become important. So I have 10 members in my coalition. How many you have? Oh, you only have 4. We outnumber you. We are legally uh, a bigger power compared to you. That sort of thing, right? And one more thing is the end of religious authority. So the Pope was very influential. The Vatican was super influential, right? And that was ended. So the interference of the Vatican in the internal affairs of various nations, of various kingdoms, that was ended. And there was this gradual, as a consequence, a gradual shift towards what they call secular governance, secularism, the 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 distinction between the separation of church and state, that came out of the Treaty of Westphalia. And the concept of balance of power also came out of this, because now that the church is no longer interfering, and each state has legal equality. So wherever you have coalitions, we will see how many states are in which coalition, and how many we have on which side, and that creates a balance of power, right? That sort of thing. So all of this introduced the various key principles that underpin today's international system, or supposedly underpin today's international system. State sovereignty, that each state determines the way it's going to be run, its laws, its policies, its practices. And so each state determines what happens in the state, and it's going to be free from external interference, external influence, non-intervention. You stay out of my affairs, I stay out of your affairs. Legal equality, all states have the same equal rights in the international realm, in international relations. And religious pluralism, as long as it is Christianity, that sort of thing. So that is the Treaty of Westphalia, and that essentially underpins the international order today. The Atlantic Charter, which is the US based, the US the American um, application of this, the supposed universality of uh, Western principles, Western whatever it is. That started with the Atlantic Charter. It's kind of an extension of this, you could say, and it gave America the pretext of the illusion of moral superiority over the world, the US and England as well, Britain. So the English speaking world, they said that our values will now be the universal values, which have to be applied everywhere, and every nation must uphold these values. That's sort of nonsense. So anyway, that's the Treaty of Westphalia. It did change the way countries deal with each other once it was applied to the entire world.